Welcome to the DC Bar Community's Law Student Podcast with your hosts, Sienna Hurd, 3L at American University, Washington College of Law.
Elena Hoffman, 3L at the George Washington University Law School.
And Delali Dagadu, 4L at UDC David Ed Clark School of Law. You're listening to Let's Brief It.
Hello and welcome back to Let's Brief It. We're your hosts, Elena Hoffman and Sienna Hurd. Cryptocurrency has been gaining a lot of traction in the media in recent years, and it seems like the sort of topic you either know a ton about or absolutely nothing about. Luckily for us, we have a guest on today's episode who happens to know quite a bit about cryptocurrency and the ways it impacts the environment.
Eric Guthrie is the Director of Training Programs for the Government Blockchain Association, or the GBA, and a partner in the Cogent Law Group. He's also the author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Blockchain or Die, which has also won 3 book awards. Eric provides legal, consultative, and training services to companies all over the world. Finally, Eric designed and delivered the Blockchain Legal Specialist course, which has been accredited by the DC Bar for 7.5 MCLEs. So Eric, thank you for joining us today. I'm wondering, as our first question, sort of how you got involved in this practice area and sort of this intersection overall.
Well, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here. So when I graduated law school, I started out being a DA in criminal law. And then I moved to basically corporate law and doing labor and employment, where I really cut my teeth in litigation and negotiations and, that side of, the corporate practice. But then what happened next, there was a series of moves and going from public to private. I ended up in DC, where I started doing a lot of consulting in terms of diversity and inclusion. And I joined a law firm called the Cogent Law Group. But what happened was I learned about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology. And when I learned about it, the short story, this is a long story, I'm going to give you the short story. I realized it was going to be a paradigm shifting technology. And every generation, there's a new technology that comes out that's just a huge paradigm shift. In the 90s, early 2000s, it was the internet. And the people that got involved with the internet, they came out and become thought leaders. Some of them became extremely wealthy. And, I was not riding that wave back then. I was just getting started with my career. So I said, I want to be in this wave. And so not only did I get involved as an investor, I also learned everything I possibly could about blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. And then I realized that this was also going to change the legal profession as well, just like the internet did, back in the 90s. So I really jumped in and started to do a lot of training and I wrote the book, Blockchain or Die. And I began to realize that companies needed advice on this because the regulatory landscape was changing. With smart contracts, the legal landscape was changing. The creation of new corporate structures. There's now going to be a new wave of new, companies filing to be blockchain companies, so they have to file differently. And also SEC regulations. It's going to be huge for investment in cryptocurrencies. It already is huge. So I pivoted and took that area of law and kind of, ran with it. And as a result, I've, got a number of clients, domestically and internationally, some of them in the environmental space that need legal advice on how to manage their blockchain projects.
That's a really cool introduction into the area. It seems like you don't have that much of a background in environmental law, but how would you personally describe the interaction between environmental energy law and cryptocurrency?
So the beauty about blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies is that it's transactional, right? I mean, it impacts every single industry out there. And you're correct. I did not, in law school, I took an environmental law course, but I did not practice environmental law before, my introduction into blockchain technology. But because it's transactional, right? Every area of the law is impacted, including environmental law. And why is that? Because there's transactional components in environmental law. For example, there's carbon credits, right? Carbon credits are clearly a transactional component that's only growing. Carbon credits is going to be a $50 billion industry by 2030. So that lends extremely well to the cryptocurrency market, which is right now worth $2 trillion, right? So when you have a blockchain component to your environmental component, you can not only, create more efficiencies, not only can you use better technology, you can also eliminate intermediaries and provide more financial incentives to be more green or, create products and services that service the environment better. So in dealing with my client, that's our objective, in terms of figuring out how to use this technology to monetize it and to make it a global powerhouse to help the environment.
Yeah, thank you for giving us sort of a brief overview of that intersection. That's something that's really interesting to me, and I definitely don't know very much about it. And can you tell us next, what exactly is crypto mining and what does it take to get one new coin?
So crypto mining is kind of especially when Bitcoin first came out, it was kind of the backbone of how to do Bitcoin transactions. And here's why. Bitcoin created the first decentralized financial network, right? Everything so far has been centralized. Banks, government regulations, financial infrastructures is all based on a company, managing the transactions, approving transactions, and sometimes even owning the transactions, right? So when you decentralize and it's owned by the people, it's run by the people, you need a process and a mechanism to approve transactions. So what's that process? That process is mining, where in order to transfer Bitcoin and use Bitcoin for purchases or other cryptocurrencies, Ethereum, Ripple, Litecoin, Stellar Lumens, etc., right? You need a way to process transactions, and that's what's called mining. So the miners validate all transactions and they get paid, for successfully mining transactions between party A and party B, and then party B and then party C. So that briefly describes mining, but mining is becoming more and more efficient because now there's even better ways to mine, which we'll talk about later on. And I think it's evolving to become a much better, a decentralized approval structure.
So is a coin, how difficult is it to get a coin? I just don't conceptually understand what it is.
So there's a number of ways for a person to obtain a coin, right? And first of all, it depends on the kind of coin that it is. So you could, for example, buy a coin from a cryptocurrency exchange. You could, go online and create an account with a Coinbase or Voyager or Gemini exchange, and you could simply just buy a coin as you would buying a stock, right? And then it's in your account. Hopefully it increases in value. Hopefully you make money off of it. That's one way you can, actually obtain a coin. The other is, like we were discussing, is mining. So you set up you download the protocol, the program for whatever crypto it is. You download a wallet, which is the place where your coin is stored, right? And then you need to have a computer with sufficient power to be able to mine. With Bitcoin, you need a massive computer to be able to get anything out of it because it's so competitive, it's not even funny. But with other cryptocurrencies, which is not as competitive, you can still mine with a laptop with a really good graphic card, and you can make some decent money off of it. So another way to get cryptocurrencies is when a cryptocurrency first comes out, they want to encourage use. They want to encourage people to actually, get the coin and use it and buy it and purchase it. So they actually will give it away for free. There's a lot of coins that I've gotten for free just by being one of the first number of people to learn about it, download it, and just store it in one of my wallets. So you could also join a mining pool, which is basically if you want to be part of the mining environment, the mining business, but not have to worry about having a computer and electricity bills and producing a lot of heat and so on and so forth. You could join a mining pool where you pay monthly rate to be part of the pool, and as they successfully mine coin and get paid, you get a portion of that success back. Those mining pools have become more successful since China stopped mining, because now there's more business in other parts of the world other than China. So, those are a few of the ways you can actually, obtain a coin, because there's so many ways that you can actually transact business in cryptocurrencies. There's so many ways you can get a coin.
You said that you'll need a really powerful computer, and I was reading recently that Bitcoin mining consumes around 80 terawatt hours of electricity annually. And to put that in perspective for our listeners, that's comparable to the annual electricity use in all of Finland, which is a country of about 5.5 million people. What do you think about that? Do you see a future where questions of energy use and the importance of cryptocurrency can be reconciled?
Yeah, I do. And here's why. First, I look at the journey of mining as a bell curve. At first, when it was very few folks doing it, and Bitcoin was worth 0.003 cents when it first started out, which, by the way, it was worth 0.003 cents because the creators or the initial users had to figure out how to value their coin. And they valued it based on the amount of electricity it took to mine one coin. So that was 0.003. And then after that, it went right through the roof. And it had some bumps along the road, of course, but to go from 0.003 to 60,000, I mean, that's an astronomical increase in value. So the bell curve started low because it was very cheap and people didn't know about it. And as it got more expensive, more people found out about it. It went to the peak of the bell curve. I think we're on the other side of that bell curve heading down for a number of reasons. One of them, again, is China. The ban on mining in China reduced the number of miners. And, a lot of the Chinese miners were using dated, antiquated, less efficient mining equipment to mine. They were just mining by brute force, by sheer number. And retirement of those computers in the mining pools led to a higher use of the more efficient computers, number one. And number two, miners always look for ways to save costs. And one way to save costs is to mine in countries that have a lower kilowatt rate per electricity used. So, going to countries where you have renewable energy, which also is, usually lower in the kilowatt hours per cost, is the best way to save your costs when you're mining. So efficient machines, renewable energy, all those are now very, very common in the cryptocurrency mining space. And I can think it's going to continue to improve and continue to become more efficient over time. And the final point I'll make is, a lot of cryptocurrencies are doing mining by proof of stake rather than proof of work. Proof of work is becoming an antiquated way to mine because it's just a sheer number of computers trying to compete to get that one coin, to successfully finance a transaction and get that one coin. The problem is you could have 100,000 computers competing for one coin, right? And proof of stake, the miner has to actually put stake in the cryptocurrency by buying it and having it being held, for them to mine. So that reduces the number of nodes, slash miners that are competing for the coin by sometimes up to 80%. So you still have the number of nodes successfully mining it, but it's just far, far fewer nodes, which also means less electricity.
That's really interesting. And I'm really glad that you brought up China because we were sort of wondering, with the fact that China's top regulators recently banned crypto trading and mining, we were wondering if you think that this will be a bad thing for Bitcoin. But based on what you've said so far, it sounds like there are also some positive impacts coming from that. So what do you see as sort of the impact of China banning this trading and mining?
That's a great question. I mean, I think there was a little bump in the road for Bitcoin price when China rolled out that ban on mining, because people didn't know what to expect. I mean, did that mean that transactions wouldn't be validated? Did that mean that Bitcoin, would now take longer, the Bitcoin transactions longer to be approved? And the answer was no, no, and no. The rest of the world picked up the slack, and they actually did extremely well because of it, because there was more money now being shared by other parts of the world rather than China, who was the 800-pound gorilla in the mining space, right? And the other proof in the pudding is, since the China ban on Bitcoin mining, the price has greatly increased since then. So, I mean, if the price went down and stayed down, and became stagnant or continued to decrease, I think that would show that, Bitcoin mining couldn't survive without China. But clearly, a number of different market factors have shown that we don't need China to mine Bitcoin for Bitcoin to continue to be successful.
We've talked a lot about what Bitcoin is and how it relates to the environment, but I'm curious, what are the more overview legal questions that you come across or commonly see involving your cryptocurrency work?
So that's a good question. It really depends on the industry for one. Most commonly, I deal with questions around securities and whether or not the company has to file their cryptocurrency as an investment with the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission. And there's a whole series. We won't go into it in this podcast. Maybe a different podcast. We talk about the securities laws, but there's a whole different set of laws that have to be and regulations that have to be considered when there is the idea for creating a token or creating a currency. Sometimes, depending on the business model and the investment model, you do have to file with the SEC. Sometimes you do not. It really depends on what your model is and whether or not you're marketing a return revenue for your investors. That's number one. Number two is, when it comes to the industry you're in, let's talk about green energy, right? What are the environmental laws that have to be considered when it comes to creating blockchain technology and green energy? And sometimes those two interrelate. With my client, we're talking about whether or not we're going to be fine with the SEC based on how the coin is used and how it's marketed, and how does that impact us globally? Do we have to actually do filings with other countries globally because we're trying to use our coin in a global sense? So do we have to use a filing system with the EU and file for there as an investment, or in other Asian countries? So and then how does that combine with the environmental laws of the country? So it really depends. And another client of mine is entertainment. So with the entertainment component and NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens, copyright and trademark issues are rampant with NFTs. A lot of folks are posting stuff on NFT platforms that they don't have the rights to do so. So, how do we make sure that we are in compliance with intellectual property when we're using non-fungible tokens to promote, an artist, or promote a celebrity, or promote, a social media influencer? All those things. That's just a few of the things that I deal with on a regular basis.
That's fascinating. Thank you. I know that because this is such a growing field, and because it's grown so much in just recent years, I'm sure that we have listeners that are very interested in getting involved in this kind of thing. So for our listeners that are still in law school, do you have a sense of the courses that a student might be able to take to pursue a career in this area?
So that's another great question. I mean, this is a very, very new area of law that's emerging. And it's a very, very new area of business that's emerging. So the vast majority of colleges and law schools have yet to create curriculum to give to students for their studies. I will have the following piece of advice. If you go to a university that does not have a legal course for cryptocurrencies and blockchains, then my advice to you is maybe the business school does, or maybe the undergraduate school does. I know when I went to Columbia Law School, I took business courses in the business school as well. And I took a course in the film and art school. So if you go to a university that, that has, multiple advanced degree programs, if you don't have one in the law school, there may be one in a different school as well. And trust me, understanding the business model, it almost is the first thing you should do before you understand the legal model, right? Because you have to be able to advise them on the legalities of it, but it's really important to understand the business model first in many cases. That's my first piece of advice. My second piece of advice is, if you don't have that, there's a really large global blockchain community, and we're very supportive of each other because we're so new in this space, and everything is so emerging, and it's so supportive that we want to see this succeed, right? The original supporters of the Bitcoin white paper that wanted to see Bitcoin become a reality, they weren't paid for that work. They just jumped in and volunteered and made it happen with their expertise and their education. Well, in some ways, the same principle applies in terms of the blockchain space and wanting to see it be successful. So there's a lot of organizations like the Government Blockchain Association, There's a lot of local organizations as well. So, get involved by becoming a member of an organization that has, a blockchain mission, a cryptocurrency mission, and you can start educating yourself. And then when it is a time to use the education, and you can even try and get certifications. There's certification programs. GBA has one. You can go to gbaglobal.org and look for our certification programs. Find a good quality education program with also has certification components where you can, be part of a community by getting educated, getting certified, and using it from there. The sky is the limit right now. The sky is the limit. You can write your own ticket if you have the incentive, if you have the hustle to do so. Right now, you don't have corporations hiring blockchain attorneys left and right. It's very, very scarce right now. But in a few years from now, with the experience you gain from being a hustler and getting out there and learning and just becoming educated on this, when it's time to post for a job, you have that behind you in terms of your resume and your CV or whatever you use to find a position. That experience is there and it can make you very marketable in the market.
Thank you so much. That's really, really great advice. And I hope our listeners take note. On a less serious note, what do you think about Dogecoin?
So for those of you that know, Dogecoin is a coin that it's been around for quite some time. And it's a meme coin, which means that it's really more of a social media kind of, marketing coin. The business model for Dogecoin actually initially was actually a joke. And this is on the record. So this is not like something that I'm saying that from my opinion, but Dogecoin just took off. I mean, it just really went through the roof, especially with Elon Musk making some positive comments about it in social media. It went through the roof. And then what happened? Elon Musk goes on Saturday Night Live, makes some very bizarre comments about it in the negative, and the coin tanked 60% in one day. So what do I think about Dogecoin? Let me answer it this way. In all my courses and in all my presentations and webinars, I espouse investing in cryptocurrencies that have a solid business case, that are solving an actual problem, right? Not a coin just to be a coin, or a coin to make somebody else rich, not you, and they pump it up and then they dump it and you're left holding a worthless coin. Investing in a cryptocurrency business or blockchain business that has a solid business model with experienced executives and founders that create it, with a solid white paper, with a professional and very interactive website and listing on a number of exchanges. That's what I look for in a coin. And if the coin does not have that, then I'm really not interested in that coin, because like I invest in the stock market, I'm not a day trader. I'm not a quick in and quick out. I invest for the long term. I had some friends of mine that invested in Bitcoin, made a few thousand and got out, and it just went through the roof. And they said, gosh, I wish I had invested more or stayed in longer. I would have made more money. Investing in the long term is one way to reduce risk. So looking for solid companies that have everything I mentioned before, that's the approach.
Well, this has been really informative. I mean, just speaking for myself, thank you so much, Eric. And we hope that this episode has been enlightening to all of our listeners as well. So thank you all for listening to this episode of Let's Brief It, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
The DC Bar Law Student community strives to engage and support law students before you graduate and expose you to the tangible benefits of joining the DC Bar and DC Bar communities. Curated programming allows law students to participate in substantive content programming, leadership trainings, networking with practicing attorneys in fields of interest, writing opportunities, and other activities designed to expand your legal education beyond the classroom. Make an investment in your legal career by joining the law student community. To learn more, visit us at www.dcbar.org or email communities@dcbar.org. We look forward to hearing from you.